God bless.
Happy anniversary, MorningStar. Yeah, come on. Let's give God some praise in this place today. Thank you, Jesus. My name is Tony. I get to serve as lead pastor around here. And as lead pastor, let me welcome all of you who are here in person, those of you who are joining us online, many of you from far, far away. Thank you so much. It really means the world to me, Heather. I'm going to really try to get through this day. To our family.
Love you, TB.
I love you. Thank you for coming. I really, really mean that. It means the world to me that you would be here. If this is your first time here, you have no idea what's going on. We're just having a party today. We're celebrating 25 years of MorningStar. It was 25 years ago this month that MorningStar Church had its first worship service ever. This month, 25 years ago. And I remember, I was thinking about this the last few days. I remember as like the multitudes were just pouring in that first Sunday morning, and I was sure we were going to have to pull out extra chairs. We had like 15 people there that day, and it was pandemonium and amazing. I think we have a picture of it. In fact, when we showed that original crew, there are some of you, right, that are here right now. And I say 15, 20 people. So we were counting everybody. We counted like the custodian at the school. We were counting random people walking by on the sidewalk, man. My daughter had an imaginary friend. We counted her. We counted everybody. Everybody in that day. But that's actually not where MorningStar began. 6 years before that day, I was in seminary working on my master's degree. At that point, I thought I was going to go into the chaplaincy. I was going to be an Air Force chaplain. At least that's the direction I thought the Lord had given me. But one day I was sitting in class in seminary, and I was kind of daydreaming, man. Honestly, I don't even remember what the professor was talking about that day, but my mind just started to wander, and I really felt like the Lord spoke to me. Now, if that's new for you, you're like, God speaks. God, we do believe God speaks. And I felt like he spoke to me in that moment. And I felt like he said, Tony, I know you thought you were going this direction. I want you to go this direction. I want you to plant a church someday. And that was something I had never considered in my whole life. I'd never even thought about starting a church, man. For a long time, I actually fought against going into the ministry. I was like, God, that's your idea. It's not mine. I'm not doing that. And I resisted as long as I could. But I really felt like the Lord just kind of spoke to me in that moment and said, don't sweat the details right now. When the time comes, I promise you, I'm going to fill in all of the blanks. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do and when to do it. But this is what I felt like God told me. I felt like God said, Tony, if you will be careful to obey, I will be faithful to provide. Amen. And we've seen it. Haven't we? Haven't we seen God being faithful over and over again for 25 years? We've seen the truth of those verses that Pastor Stephanie just shared, and I'm going to share them again because this is the focus of the morning. Some of my favorite verses in the Bible. Lamentations 3:22, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness, O God. We've seen it over and over again. When I was a kid growing up in church, we used to sing the words of those verses in a hymn that I just love so much. Maybe you grew up singing that hymn as well, like I did. We would sing about God's faithfulness, but for 25 years in this church, we have seen God's faithfulness in so many ways, man. In the beginning, we were starting from scratch, right? And some of you know this story, but in our very first Bible study, we had 6 people. So 3 couples showing up that very first Bible study 25 years ago. And the next week, one of the couples didn't come back. So, we hear people talk talk about like the fastest growing churches in America. Sometimes people will write articles and do studies on the fastest growing churches in this nation. We were on the other list. We were like number one on the list of the fastest dying churches in the nation, man. Not a list you want to be on, but God was faithful. Then we started having Sunday services, and we had no building, no budget, and no butts in the seats. But we were having church. I remember one Sunday, this is about 2 months in, we were having church, and literally we started church with 7 people. There were 7 people. I was one of them. I was up in the front. I was leading worship. My friend Mona was leading with me on the keyboard. Her husband was back at the soundboard. We had a young teenager on the drums playing, and the only other people in the room were 3 people. That little boy's mama and his 2 little brothers. That's it. It was a capacity crowd, man, record-breaking. The wrong kinds of records, but records nonetheless. But God was faithful. Another example, for the first year of our church, some of you know this too, because we didn't have a dime, man. We didn't have any money at all. I went to work with a flooring company laying tile. Now, you might hear that and say, man, Tony, I'm impressed. We had no idea that you were that handy. I'm not. My friend owned the flooring company, and he felt sorry for me, and he gave me a job. That's a true story. That's exactly how that happened right there. And so I worked for him for about a year, working Monday through Friday, sometimes 6 in the morning until 6 at night. And then I would go home just dog-tired, completely exhausted. And that's when I would also try to be a husband and a dad. We had Caroline, who's with us on the front. She was small, right, when we started. And I would also try to write sermons then late at night and try to write Bible studies and lead Bible studies and meet with people and develop strategy for our young church. Was it hard? Yes. It was really, really difficult, but God was faithful. How so? 1 year later, I did that for a year. 1 year after that, I got a surprise phone call from a pastor in another state. I'd never met this guy. I know who he was. I didn't know that he knew who I was. Never met him before, but he said this. He said, Tony, I heard about what you're doing, and I feel like God has spoken to us, and we're going to help you out. This is what we're going to do. Our church is going to sponsor you. Our church is going to pay your salary for 1 year. We want you to quit your day job. The job with the flooring company? I thought maybe the boss had called him like, hey, can you help me out here? Because we got to do something. I don't know what he's called to do, but he ain't called to do this. So he said, listen, I want you for the next year to let us pay your salary. You tell us exactly what you think you need for you and your small family. You're going to start getting a check next month. Quit your job. Focus on MorningStar. And I heard the words of the Lord one more time saying this, Tony, if you'll be careful to obey, I will be faithful to provide. We saw it. We saw it in the best of times, and we saw it in the worst of times, in the most difficult of days. And really, isn't it those moments that you see it even more clearly? I mean, let's be honest. It's really the dark days, it's the tough times that we see this more clearly than ever. In fact, let me draw your attention back to this book of Lamentations. Anybody know who wrote the book of Lamentations? Anybody? Anybody? Just call it out if you know. Jeremiah, right. Jeremiah the prophet, most scholars believe it was him. What you may not know is that Jeremiah was traumatized when he wrote these words. If you know anything about Jeremiah, maybe you know that he was already traumatized. He's referred to as what? Here's some trivia for you, class. Jeremiah is the weeping prophet. Why is he called the weeping prophet? Because he cried all the time. Duh. Why did Jeremiah cry all the time? Good question. Think about this. Slip into his sandals for a minute, if you might. Jeremiah, at this point in his life, had been in ministry for 40 years. Much longer than us. So watch this. For 4 decades, Jeremiah had been preaching his heart out. He'd been teaching. He'd been prophesying to God's people. But here's the problem. No one listened to a word he said. Can you imagine? 40 years. Nobody's listening. And God actually told him this was going to be the case before he ever started. He said, Jeremiah, I'm calling you into ministry. I want you to be a prophet to my people, and I'm going to give you some specific messages to share with the people of Judah specifically, but this is just a heads up. Ain't nobody going to listen. Nobody's going to pay attention. You are going to deliver some of the best sermons in all of history, Jeremiah, but the people are going to completely blow you off. It's no wonder homie cried all the time. You'd cry too. I'd cry, especially, man, when it starts happening. Jeremiah starts out in ministry, and at best, people are just completely ignoring him, as I said, but it got worse. Eventually, they started making fun of him, started saying all these cruel and nasty, nasty things about him, and to be honest, Jeremiah said some hard things to them. This was a tough assignment that Jeremiah had. Some assignments are a little easier than this, man, not this one. This was a hard thing that God had called him to. He shared some of the most difficult sermons you can imagine, sobering words. Why? Because God was trying to get his people to repent. He was trying to get their attention and say, hey, you got to ditch the idol worship. You got to turn from the idols. You got to turn from your wickedness, and you have to turn your hearts back. Come running back to me. Otherwise, judgment is going to fall. That was his message for 40 years. But to the ears of the people, man, that just started to drone on and on. To the ears of the people, that just sounds like Jeremiah's being negative, man. You're a negative Nelly, Jeremiah. You have nothing positive to say. In fact, we know him as the weeping prophet. But that's not what they called him. Back in Jeremiah's day, maybe you don't know this, but they gave Jeremiah a different nickname all their own. They called him Magor Mizabib. That's my best Hebrew, okay? That's as good as it gets. But in Hebrew, this is what it means. It means terror on every side. What? What a wacky nickname, right? I mean, why in the world would they think about it? They're like, Jeremiah, you're paranoid. You're like Chicken Little, man. Every time we're around you, the sky is falling. Judgment is coming. Everything is going to pieces. Man, to the ears of the people, they're like, man, you're just Mr. Terror on every side. Now, side note, if you guys have some secret nickname for me, nicknames, maybe, I don't know, unless it's something like the handsome one or something, along those lines. You just can keep it to yourselves. I don't want to know. In time, though, Jeremiah was persecuted. He was abused. He had death threats on his life. One day, he got beaten up and thrown into a pit and left there to die. You thought you had a tough life? Eventually, that judgment, though, that he had been describing for so many years, eventually that hammer of judgment fell on the nation. King Nebuchadnezzar, if you know anything about Israel's history or history in general, this is all true and verifiable. You can go back and study it. 586 BC, Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire comes riding into Jerusalem, and they invade, they ransack the whole place, they massacre thousands of people, they take thousands of more, kidnap them, take them back to their homeland, and they burn the city down. They destroy the temple. And where is Jeremiah this whole time? Anybody got a wild, crazy guess? Tradition says that Jeremiah witnessed the whole thing. Tradition, scholars tell us that Jeremiah wrote Lamentations while sitting in a cave. Sitting in a cave just to the north of the city of Jerusalem as he is watching his beloved homeland, his home city, burn to the ground. This is why he opens the book of Lamentations as he does back in chapter 1, verse 1. This is what he says. He says, Jerusalem, now imagine he's in the cave. Jerusalem, once so full of people, is now deserted. She who once was great among the nations now sits alone like a widow. She is a slave. She sobs through the night. because there is no one left to comfort her. It was like Jeremiah sobbing too. The weeping prophet is at it once again. Weeping, lamenting, all of this. That's why it's called Lamentations. Did the light bulb just pop on? This is why he's grieving over his nation, and I believe mourning the personal toll that it has taken on him. So if you want to go back and read it on your own time from the very beginning, right out of the gate, for the first 2.5 chapters, this is all you see. Lament, lament, lament. And it's understandable. Man, it makes sense when you start to think about how you felt right after 9/11. You remember? Except, let me adjust the story for you. Think about it like this. Think of it as all of New York City got just totally destroyed. Heather and I were in New York City just a few weeks ago. Can you imagine? Like the entire city just ransacked and burned to the ground, and then thousands more people than were killed their lives are taken, and then thousands of leaders are taken back across the water to Afghanistan. Now you are starting to understand how Jeremiah felt on that day. This is the worst catastrophe in Israel's history. So knowing that, man, when you get to chapter 3, actually it sounds strange that Jeremiah would say what he said. Sadness all around, pain, confusion. And he breaks off something like this, verse 22, in spite of it all, in spite of what I see, in spite of what I feel, this is what I know. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. God, great is your faithfulness in spite of it all. Sounds out of place. In fact, you might be sitting there wondering, man, how is that even possible, right? Jeremiah's world is falling apart. His heart aches with sorrow and fear. How in the world can you even pull something like that out of somewhere deep? I don't even know how that's possible. You know what I think the answer is? It's found a few verses before this. Let's back up to verse 19. Let me show you something. Look what he wrote. Jeremiah says this. He says, I remember my affliction and my wandering. It's like it's impossible to forget. So he's saying, I'm not trying to forget all that or just act like it never happened. Right? Pretend and put on a strong, cheesy grin. He said, I'm not trying to ignore the bitterness and the gall. I remember all that well. And as a result, my soul is downcast within me. He's not feeling good, but he's not going to stay that way. Well, what can he do about it? Look, verse 21. Yet I call this to mind. In my worst moments, I'm going to force myself to remember the best things about God. Whatever I happen to feel, whatever I might be walking through, experiencing in life, cannot change what I know in my heart, what I've seen to be true, that God's love is steadfast, His mercy is new every day, and that He is faithful. He says, listen, when I just discipline my mind to remember all of that, the most amazing thing happens every time. And I remember, it all starts right here, man. Crazy, something remarkable happens. Do you see it? This is how I have hope again. When I do this, this is what sparks new hope inside of me every time. What kind of hope? It's the hope that if God has been faithful before, He'll be faithful again. It's a hope that says if I have seen Him come through yesterday, He is going to come through today and tomorrow and next week and beyond that as well. And listen, it doesn't mean that his feelings don't matter. Doesn't mean that yours don't matter. Jeremiah, listen, see what he said. He said, it's impossible for me to forget the feelings. And you shouldn't forget the feelings. It's not like you should just dismiss them altogether. God gave you emotions. Don't be afraid of them. It's one of the ways that you were created in His image. You have those emotions for a reason. It's okay to embrace them, to engage them. There's nothing wrong with that. So listen, just don't believe the lie. It is deceptive that if you are a person of faith, that somehow you have to disregard how you feel. That is not biblical. It's not biblical and it ain't healthy. But having said that, I want to put this up on the screen for you because I want you to sink your teeth into this. While you should not disregard how you feel, you cannot allow your feelings to dictate how you live and dictate and determine what you believe. You can't. Because the feelings are going to come and go. Feelings are so fickle. But you don't have to be bullied by those feelings. You don't have to get bossed around by your emotions for the rest of your life, your thoughts, your memories. You get a choice to believe. It's up to you, but you actually get a choice to believe that even if your life is really, really hard right now, God is still good. You get a choice to hang on to that, even if your circumstances are dreadful, that God is still faithful. This is what we see in Jeremiah. He's struggling. The wheels are falling off. His world is crashing down. But I love this. He refuses to let his experiences crush his expectations. He won't let it happen. And when his feelings and his faith are at odds, and don't you know sometimes that happens? Sometimes your feelings are not going to align with what your faith is telling you over and over. Sometimes that does happen to the best of us, but even in those moments, he forces himself to remember what God has already proven to him so many times in the past. What God has shown him, that God is loving, that His mercy is new every morning. And let me just pause on that one. Maybe there are some of us here today, or maybe somebody watching online, and you'd say, man, I feel like just yesterday, I exhausted every ounce of that mercy. That's okay. That's okay. Maybe every day last week, every day for the last month, or for many, many years, you have been wearing that mercy out. No worries at all. Before you woke up today, God had a brand new shipment of mercy headed your way. And you open the door, and boom, it's like that Amazon guy who comes and he's kind of lurking around at your doorstep like at 3 a.m. And that's kind of creepy when you think about it, really. But you open that door and bam, you don't know how it got there. There's a package. And it's what you've been needing. It's what you've been looking for. This is God's mercy for you showing up every day. A brand new delivery is coming your way. And Jeremiah makes an intentional choice to remember that God is faithful. And you can too. I can. I hope you've learned that by now. If not, start today. Jeremiah makes an intentional choice to realize, even if I can't change my circumstances, I can still change my mind. And sometimes you can't change anything about what's going on around you, but you can still make a change right up here in your thoughts, in your mind. Let me put it like this. We refer to this as our train of thought, right? And sometimes your train of thought is just rolling, man. It's just going full speed ahead. But every now and then, anybody else besides me, your train of thought starts to run off the tracks. Starts to run way off into the ditch or off into the woods. Man, Jeremiah is remembering sometimes I gotta make an intentional decision to get the train of my thought back on tracks of truth. What do I know is true? This is the only way to start having hope. Once again, Those two things are tied together. It's remembering that God is faithful, not only to get me through the chaos, but even faithful in the chaos. Like, it's not just like, I'll see you on the other side. I'll pull you through. I've got a rope, and I'll just drag you through all this craziness. I'm going to meet you right in the middle of it. And I'm going to work in you. I'm going to work on you. I'm going to work for you, right? And even when it feels like I'm getting ready to fail, especially when it feels like you're getting ready to fail. Any of you like to work out? Raise your hands. Where are my workout buddies? All right. Now, I know that ain't everybody. Some of you are like raising my hand. That makes me tired. Okay? God loves us all. Amen. Hey, if you work out with weights specifically, then you probably are already aware of a concept of doing an exercise to failure. Have you heard of this before? So whatever muscle group you're working, maybe your pectoralis or your biceps or your quads or whatever, what's the idea? You're working so hard, you're pushing, and you get to the place where you cannot do another rep. Your muscle group is so completely taxed and so spent. You can't push one more. You can't pull one more. You are at the point of failure. The experts tell us that's actually a great place to be because that's when muscle growth happens more than ever. Right? We want to just do 12 to 15 really light weights and not really sweat. No. You've got to tax the muscle group to the point of failure. Don't you know God will allow that to happen in your life? He lets me fail. My strength, my endurance, my cunning and experience and all of my talent, he just lets it absolutely fail because that's when he really, really goes to work. How many of you have seen that to be true? Anybody else? Besides me? He's being faithful even in that moment to grow you, to stretch you, to teach you. This is the word of Romans 8:28. We saw this in this long journey through Romans we've been in the last few months. Romans 8:28. We know. We're not guessing. We're not even hoping. We know. And this is something I intentionally remind myself. We know this, that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and those who are called according to his purpose. That's his word, not mine. I'm not making this up. This is an example of God's goodness, not only at the end, but even right in the middle. Even in my failure, he is faithful. And when I make a deliberate decision to remind myself of that, you know what starts happening inside of me? This is what I've seen. Hope begins to breathe again. Hope starts sparking up in my life all over again. What kind of hope? The hope that just as he has been faithful before, he will be faithful again. Over the last 25 years, once again, we've had to do that as a church, have we not? We've had to do this even from before the beginning, even before we got started. Some of you know our story. You know that the devil was trying his best to sabotage this whole thing before we even got started. But God showed up. And he was faithful. He was faithful years later during the financial crash of 2008 and 2009 and 2010. I'm going to be honest with you, for about 3 years, I thought we are sinking for good at any moment. I don't know how in the world we're going to make it another day, man. I mean, every day, man, I'd be like checking our finances and checking our bank account and do we have enough money to pay these bills? And meanwhile, we've got a church full of people who their businesses are closing. and they're having to lay people off, or they're getting laid off, or they're losing their home. This actually happened to people in the MorningStar family, and I'm trying to care for them, trying to nurture them, trying to be a good pastor, all the while realizing what's happening to the entire scope of our finances as a collective whole. Man, it was bleak. Terrible. But God was faithful. Years later, trying to get into this building. Not many of you know this because it was a very, very private thing with just a few of us, but trying to get this building, get into it, get it renovated. You can't even imagine the roadblocks that we had to endure. You can't imagine. It was awful. But God was faithful. 2019, in just a span of a few months, this was maybe one of the weirdest times in our history. In just a span of a few months, we had a group of people, little by little, leave MorningStar Church. 2 of them were elders and 2 of them were staff members. You might say, oh my gosh, what happened? Nothing. They just moved. It's just life. But it just so happened that life was happening all at the same time. And I was like, what in the world is going on, man? What is happening? So all that happened in 2019 was just in a few months of each other. We had all these departures. Guess what happened just a few months later? What happened? What hit just a few months after that? COVID. Yeah. What a barrel full of fun that was. And on some days, man, I thought, I don't know if we're going to recover. For 6 straight months, hardly a soul was in this building. For 6 months, I preached to empty seats and a camera. That's it. We're like setting up pictures of some of you, like on the seats, just so I could give me a little feedback or some eye contact or something. That was it. And if you were around here at that time, 6 months later, we started having church, and I promise you, like 20 people were coming on Sundays. Hardly anybody was here, and many of the people who were coming were just coming on faith, but they were still battling some fear. And yet God was faithful. He was faithful then. He will be faithful now. For the next 25 years. What's going to happen in the next 25 years? I have no idea. But I know this, God will be faithful through it all. Through every bit of it, He'll be faithful. In fact, I want to speak this over every one of you individually. And I'm not really a prophet, but I feel compelled to prophesy this over this church today in the words of Philippians 1:6 and say, I am confident of this, that He who began a good work in you will be faithful to finish the job. He always finishes what He starts. I want you to be reminded of Psalm 145:13. The Lord is faithful to all of His promises. He is loving towards all He has made. I want you to hear the words of Psalm 100. God's faithfulness endures to all generations. So my dad's here today. Dad, that's your generation. Heather, that's ours. It's our generation. Jen, that's your generation. That's Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen A, Gen B, Gen C. That's Gen B back there. Here. I've been thinking for months, in preparation for this day, I've been thinking about an old hymn that some of you, if you grew up in church like I did, I know many of you didn't, but if you did, it's an old hymn that basically used to say these words: God has been our help in ages past, and He is our hope for years to come. He is faithful. He is good. Amen. I wonder if there's anybody here today, you might be in a place where you're struggling. We got some more singing, some more worship we're going to do in here in just a second, but I don't want to rush past what God might want to do. I don't want to sprint by the real reason that God may have brought you here today because you thought it was for a party. Maybe that's why you thought you came. I'd imagine for some of us, God had different plans. And maybe you're in one of those shaky moments where everything feels unstable, where everything just is hurting, it's scary. Maybe you haven't been able to really trace God's activity in your life. I'm just encouraging you to make an intentional decision right now to think back into moments in your life where you can look back and you can see that, oh, He was faithful then. Maybe you'd say, I wasn't even faithful. But God was. He was faithful then. He will be faithful now. I'm telling you. He was good then. He'll be good now. You'll be encouraged by that today. I want you to receive a lift in your spirit with that today. This is God whispering to you, I'm here, I love you, my mercy is new, my love is steadfast, and I'm faithful. This is God whispering this to you today, my friend. All my life you have been faithful. Come on, sing this with me.